I work for the State Forestry Division, and my name's Colin Happy. I work for the Forestry Division with the State of New Mexico, and I want to introduce our speaker here tonight, or this afternoon, or this morning, or whatever time it is. Her name's Phoebe Swifter. She's joining us from Cochiti Pueblo, and Phoebe is on the phone. Tell me when you're ready, otherwise I'll vamp. And Phoebe has a long history of hydrologic, post-fire science and engineering, and in her background, she grew up with the Cerro Grande fire and the Las Conchas fire in her backyard. So she knows a lot about these big fires, and she's here just to tell a quick story to set the stage for what we're going to talk about the rest of the day. So let me give it to Phoebe.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, good to see everybody this morning. I'm so glad there's so many folks here today. As Colin said, my name's Phoebe Swifter. I've been, my people and family have been in New Mexico since time immemorial, know this land very well. I come from the Pueblo of Cochiti, down along the Rio Grande. And unfortunately, I've had over 2 decades of experience working post-wildfire issues. When I came out of school, out of my graduate program, my background is actually environmental engineering with an emphasis on water and hydrology. I was tasked with taking care of all of the watersheds for Los Alamos National Laboratory after the Cerro Grande fire. And so there we had 13 watersheds severely burned above Los Alamos. But the difference I saw after Las Conchas, and I also helped the community of Nambe after the Pacheco fire. After Las Conchas, other communities were severely impacted by that fire. I helped my Pueblo of Cochiti try to navigate that particular post-fire conditions and issues. And then I also helped the Pueblo of Nambe, and then Santo Domingo Pueblo. And so with all of that experience over the last couple of decades, and I also have been helping down in the village of Ruidoso after the McBride fire, a little bit after the Little Bear fire. So unfortunately, all these wildfires have kept us busy, kept me busy, but they've given me a lot of data points. And one of the things as I look out here to all the community members here in Mora County, one of the things that is the biggest asset is you all. You all are the assets for this community. That's what I've learned. Whether working for a small pueblo like Nambe or working with Los Alamos National Laboratory, the locals, you know your weather. You know your land, you know your mountains, you know your river. And I see some shaking heads out there saying yes, yes. And so one of the things as we enter monsoon season after a fire is it's going to be a community effort. Community leaders, community members, and even those folks that are available to help provide any guidance. I've been telling folks I wish I could, computer days, right? Plug in a USB to everything I've seen over the last 20 years with forest fire and post-wildfire flooding. And so, as the gentleman before has said, you've already been impacted by the fire. And I know loss of our upper watersheds at Cochiti Pueblo has been heartbreaking. I just counted yesterday, we've been hit by 6 fires over my lifetime in our upper watersheds. And I just went back up on the Cerro Pilado fire a few weeks ago and got to see the damage there again. And every fire is different, and I want to be clear on that. Every fire is different. Every watershed is different. Every hill is different, which makes everything very complex. And here in Mora County, as I've looked at, I don't know if you guys saw me, I was looking at the map a few minutes ago. So new information is continuing to come out. And so as we get more information, like the burn severity maps, I believe there's going to be a debris flow analysis happening, which is very different than the tools I had after Cerro Grande and Las Conchas. But one of the things I want to just let everybody know is, as we enter monsoon season, some of the things that I've seen. So working over 20 watersheds after a fire, like I said, everyone has been different. From the most extreme that I've been in, where I was 15 minutes away in an adjacent watershed called Peralta, and I sat with, after the fires, I sat with the elders of our community, those that have been watching the weather, the farmers that have been watching the weather for centuries, decades. I asked them, how do the clouds move? Can you share with me what you see when the clouds form? Where in the watershed do you think it falls when it rains? What are your visual points? Like I'm looking up here at these hills and around Mora County and Mora Valley. How does the clouds come in? Can you see in the upper watershed? All these questions I asked of the grandmas and grandpas, and that information that they gave, like I'm sharing with you today, you all have that information. There's community members, farmers, ranchers, and lifelong community members of this community that have that information. So as we enter monsoon season, and as I entered monsoon season in 2011, when I saw a cloud form above Cochiti Canyon, way in the back by the Valle Caldera, I saw the darkness of the cloud. And I was in Peralta because that's where the village of Cochiti is. It's on the bottom of a 47 square mile watershed at the bottom of the funnel. And I was worried about the entire community. But I saw that cloud and I said, oh no, I know there's people in that watershed. There was about 40 to 50 people in the watershed recovering, getting debris out of that had been flooded the night before. And it was the Dixon Apple Orchard. I don't know if you guys know that place, but the Dixon Apple Orchard, folks, I had gone there in the morning. I had done a quick survey of the area, talked to folks, reiterating to them when, even though they weren't there that night, when that water came out of the Box Canyon, it was 15 feet high. And again, every watershed is different. What happened in that particular location is the Box Canyon, those of us that have used a hose, right? When we want the water to shoot out, we put our finger on the end of the hose and it shoots out. Well, that's the effect that a Box Canyon or a pinch point in a watershed has. When you put your finger on that hose, it shoots out. So that's what happened there at the Dixon Apple Orchard. It was a Box Canyon. That water, all the debris shot out and just inundated the floodplain. The day before, it was about 10 feet high coming out of there. So nobody, everybody was okay, and they're like, woo, we survived that. Woo. We're just gonna get some of our trailers out, some of our equipment out. We're gonna put everything high ground, and some things were damaged, so they started, piling up valuables into a trailer. They ordered in one of those big trailers, and they were putting their valuables in there. But that next day, I looked up and I saw that cloud. So I was calling them, I was calling, saying I need to notify somebody. We didn't have a network yet. We didn't have, this little community or this little Dixon Apple Orchard. It's in Sandoval County, but there's no community there. There's no city or mayor. So it was just me trying to call from the Pueblo of Cochiti. I zoomed over there. On the way over there, I got a hold of one guy, Martin. I told Martin, I said, hey, you need to get out. He said, what do you mean? It's not raining. I said, I know, Martin, but it's raining 10 miles above you. I can see it from the village. Martin, get out. Oh, okay, Phoebe, I trust you. So he went around and he told the other guys and workers and family members, hey, we got to get out. They're like, no, we're okay. We're good. So as I get to the top of the canyon, Martin and his crew's coming out, and he's like, Phoebe, I tried to tell them. And just then, out of the box canyon, and some of you may have seen the video in August 2011, I got there, 24,000 cubic feet per second of water and debris came out of that canyon. After it flooded, me and my team, we went in there, 24 feet high coming out of that canyon, that sediment and debris. And if nobody's ever been in a flood, it's a scary thing. It sounds like they say it sounds like a freight train. It literally sounds like a freight train. And you know how they say, calm before the storm? I've been up in the canyons after all these flooding events, waiting for the first flows to come down after I see, so I could get data, so I could be informed and help inform the tribal leadership and the county emergency managers, as well as the National Weather Service, because they used my eyes to help inform when they were going to do flood alerts and make those decisions and calls. So what I can share with you is on some of the flood events, it was a slow progression. And you'll see it smells. It's a real pungent smell. And so you kind of smell it before it comes. And what I felt is sitting up on, I would say out of like the 1,000-year floodplain point up top in a safe position, I could watch what happened. And what I see is, depending on how the watershed is, again, every watershed is unique. Sometimes if it has a large floodplain and it can spread out that debris, then it'll come sort of slow. But then if that debris gets hung up on a pinch point, like a culvert, like a bridge, like a downed tree, right? I've seen 100-foot logs coming down like little rubber duckies going down. So it's so hard to model, and so even as a hydrologist, I can't say I can predict anything. I can just share what I've seen, and what I've seen over 20 watersheds. And then some, as things go on, it'll come faster. Like that rain event, 10 miles above, hit that Dixon apple orchard in 20 minutes. And there was a Univision guy, he was a reporter, was gonna photograph what happened the night before. So he was in his little vehicle and it floated. Luckily his vehicle got stuck on a rock. So the waters were going over his vehicle, and I was like, I hope he stays in there, hoping. So it just really depends. And when we see the post-wildfire flooding come down, it can come in surges. If it hangs up, it's an unengineered dam. So it'll hold up all that water and debris, and then once it breaks, it's like a surge. It's a wave. So what I'm seeing, and I took a few minutes before I spoke to look at what I'm seeing on the bark map. We have areas of high burn severity, areas of moderate burn severity. So in this first and second year, we may see some of those debris flows. And that's based upon what I've seen across 20 different watersheds. And not to scare anybody, we're still doing the analysis here on these watersheds. But I'm sharing my story so that you all, as experts in your community, you know how the water how the rain falls. And here in New Mexico, our monsoonal events, it can rain a minute and 30 minutes, an inch in 30 minutes, easy. Easy. As farmers, I'm a farmer, we want the rain, right? For our crops and our ranching and our grazing areas. But that here in New Mexico, very rarely will we get like a steady light rain. It comes down. It comes down and it could rain over there and not over there. That's how our monsoons are. Right? Or it could rain on that hillside and not on that, or rain here and not there. So those, even this week, we had kind of a trial run, and I was watching the rain clouds and watching the radar. Here in Mora, I have folks here, and I said, okay, what do you see? I said, well, you see the clouds coming, and all of a sudden they broke up, right? I think that happened on Wednesday. We were all worried, and then nothing. But it rained on the Sierra Pilado, which I didn't think was going to rain on the Sierra Pilado. So I was over there. So it's really, that unpredictability of our monsoonal events makes it so much more important that this community be aware, know your rain clouds, talk to each other, communicate with each other, and get some plants ready. So now, like at Cochiti, after Sierra Pilado, I feel a lot more confident because we have, okay, if something's going to happen, we know what to do. We say, okay, that's high ground. We know people can be safe. That's the most important thing this first and second year. Make sure we're safe. And I know this gentleman with NMED was talking about debris removal. That's another important thing that we all can do right now, is get the debris out of the floodplain. Because that debris, if you're in the upper watershed, that debris potentially can be floatable to your neighbors or to the roads or to the culverts and bridges that you need to cross in the event that you need to get out of the canyon. So for those of you that are looking at your land and what you can do now, I would say that's priority one. Get that debris out. I know, losing so much in a fire is so heartbreaking. But these are the next steps to move forward, to keep moving forward. And what we can do, sometimes we feel, Mother Nature, one of our traditional leaders after Las Conchas, I said, we're about to do our annual feast. And what do we do on our annual feast? We pray for rain. We dance for rain. I was like, I'm worried about the rain. And what he told me is, Mother Nature needs to cleanse herself. She needs to cleanse the mountain. And if she wants to rain 3 inches of rain, she has to rain 3 inches of rain. And so I'm looking at him like, he goes, so all I'm asking, he said, is that you work to keep the people safe. So I took that to heart from him, understanding there's a balance. We can't necessarily control Mother Nature. And we have respect for those natural dynamics that Mother Nature carries. And we just have to keep each other safe as priority one. And then the next priorities is to take care of our properties and make sure that critical infrastructure is protected as best we can, knowing that there's so many uncertainties. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that can be done to slow down the big debris control?
Yes, ma'am. So there are things that can be done, and what I've learned over my career is actually, and I know state forestry and the governor is really trying to put pressure on the Forest Service to do treatments in their areas, because the higher in the watershed that you do flood mitigation, think about an avalanche. If you can mitigate it up high, it's easier than if you're at the bottom of the funnel. What are you gonna do? You can't sustain that amount of energy. You can't build a structure big enough for that amount of energy. So I've been advocating as high in the watershed to implement treatments, whether it's hydromulching, some type of treatment in the upper portion. And then again, looking at those critical points of infrastructure where we have culverts. I've seen culverts and small bridges. Those are going to become pinch points. So that's where I was suggesting. One of the biggest things is get some of that debris out of the floodplain. Those down burnt trees that I've seen in the floodplain, get that out. I hope that helps answer your question. Okay, thank you. Sure, ma'am. I don't. I actually have my own company that I started in 2013 to help communities in New Mexico after post-wildfire because I saw that there was a gap. There was a gap in how do we get resources to communities, how do we collaborate between federal, state, local government, tribal governments in some areas. There's a gap, right? And there's that gap. And how do we make sure that we empower and educate and help communities navigate those gaps? Because those gaps will be really critical for, as what was explained earlier, there's debris removal costs, there's flood mitigation costs, there's multi-jurisdictions. You got the feds, you got the state, you got local government.
Okay, so going back, I know we can't change the past is the past, but moving forward, and I don't know that this question is going to go around. But the other is there anything, who's the one that mandates the overlay? Is it the state, is it feds, or who is it?
Thank you for that question. I apologize. I don't know the answer, but I would definitely keep that question going.
Because that's a mitigation in itself. No when to do the control burning. That's the number one issue.
Thank you for your comment.
Wait,
But keep
we
that
didn't
question.
hear the question.
Okay, her question was about, and I apologize if I misquote you, but her question was about mitigation and in particular control burning and who decides when there's a control burn. And I just shared with her that I'm not the one to answer that, but I encourage her and the community to keep that question alive. Thank you all, and I'm around today if you have any questions.